conversation?
I am.
Awesome. Okay, so for those of you who are joining us, my name is Susie G, and I have with me Rondi, one of my very, I'm gonna call you a dear friend.
Aw,
He's part
thank
of
you.
the group, and we've had a few different conversations. I think over the last year or so, 2 years. I'm not
Yeah,
sure how long, but
I know.
you've had a lot of struggles, and I remember the very first time I tapped into your energy. It was probably 2 years ago. You had such a beautiful energy that I think the message was just your energy is so beautiful at that red hot moment in time. And then
Right.
you ran into some challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had some challenges. So I'm not going to share that. That's your story to tell. But you just recently invited me to, I don't remember what it was called, but um some kind of a class. I'm kind of looking at my phone here, in which I heartily accepted. And then you had sent me that voice message. And in that voice message, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's had some breakthroughs. So I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about that. So will you share some of that with me, learning about self-worth and your breakthroughs and anything you want to share on your story, because I think it will help other people.
Yeah. Well, I started what I invited you to was just a 5-day challenge. And basically it's kind of like not really kind of using a little bit of the guidelines of like the secret, but it's just about being open and like, okay, um, I'm gonna just show you or we're gonna try in the next 5 days what is something that you want in your life or what area you do want to work on.
Mhm.
And we're all gonna work together and just be open to it. And that's just the thing is I think that within that 5 days um people are like once it kind of for me was like, oh wow, this can work so a lot quicker than it can be, because I think the biggest thing that maybe stops the most of us is the overwhelming thought of what we have to do to get there, or is this going to happen, and all of those feelings. And I think I don't want to speak for other people, but maybe it's maybe the time. And then I think really deep down I think there's something, whether you want to call it value in yourself or self-worth. Like for example, I don't know how many jobs that I've gotten without any experience, and I learned through the job that I was naturally really good and I had it within me to do that job. So I think that's kind of part of it, is we don't realize how prepared we actually are to have what we want. And that's kind of like what this 5 days you learn about. You're basically ready, but this is why, or a challenge of what's stopping you from getting it started.
Mhm.
And that's what happened to me is within it motivated me, to ask for help because I realized I help so many other people. It's okay to ask for help, that I'm worthy of help and I'm deserving of help. And within that 5 days, the challenge was like manifesting 5K in 5 days. And within like two, I manifested three, and I got scared and it just stopped. And then after that, all this crap just kind of came up and all the defenses and everything. And
Right.
that's when I really began my work though. I began the work on seeing, why do I not allow myself, that type of stuff. And or just receiving, I guess. And I realized that's one of the things that I realized is it's like we are receivers, we can receive. And sometimes I think we just have to give ourselves permission. So that's
Mhm.
kind of, one of the things that I learned from that. But the biggest thing that really hit me, and you've known me in this past year, I think I've been in three different jobs that were really horrible to me. Like it was just really a lot of bullying. I kept getting bullied and mistreated wherever I went. And I couldn't figure it out because I was working so hard, doing so much, improving. But I was listening to just one of the videos I'm continuing with this course about how to manifest and value and so forth. Even though it kind of comes across as abundance, it's really about abundance in all areas of your life. It's just not physical money. It's about abundance of dreams, abundance of love, that type of thing. And when you hear something and your hair stands on all ends and everything. The one of the things, her name is Jody Shield, that she said to me, until you learn to value yourself, or that you have value, or at least even if you know that you have value, if you don't know that you have value, you're going to continue to attract people in your life that will not value you. And how that you can know that's in my soundtrack for the past year. I think, all my questions have been about bullying at work or legal and all this kind of stuff. So that just really, really just like, wow, that is why it took away it made me feel less bad about myself because kept thinking, how am I supposed to believe I'm a good and worthy person when everybody keeps treating me like shit? And like I was really like heartbroken, thinking I don't think I could ever really believe that because because I'm continuously treated like crap.
Right.
And but then when I realized it's like you're not valuing, how you don't value yourself, whether you overwork yourself, you never say no, you don't set healthy things. And I realized I thought I cared about myself. I like myself, but there's a difference, I think, between valuing yourself, and so I think I just cracked the door open. I can't honestly tell you, like, obviously no one can tell you everything, but I'm honestly I just literally, like the bird coming out of the eggshell, that first piece came out and I poked my nose through. Now I'm like getting it and I'm kind of looking around. Okay, now I got to figure out how do I get out the rest of me out of here. Saying
Right.
I realized to get me out of this situation. So you kind of got me in bed. I think I've got one leg sticking out on the other side now since I've last talked to you. Saying, so I think
This
I'm
picture
eventually,
eggshell
yeah,
with a
yeah, yeah,
your little beak out.
yeah, yeah. So, I'm still giving myself the time, but it's such that breath of fresh air, and seeing that now I can take the time to dissolve all the rest and see what it is in my life that I need to do to show value. And I can see that now. And in actuality, I feel like with you and me both, because when you talk about having a muggle job, or like certain things, it's like in most cases I'm overqualified. And not to say it from an ego perspective, but I think that threatened other people around me because a lot of people in one of the jobs, one of their bragging thing was like, "Oh, you can just ride the clock and it's easy money," but they never really did their job. But when you have somebody that comes in that loves their job and does something, then it makes them look bad,
Right.
kind of in a sense. And so then another thing I realized is like, not only, you know, I didn't not only did no, I didn't value myself, they didn't value me, but had I valued myself in that situation, I wouldn't have taken things so personally. And the thing is, I let the outside people decide and worth my value, but it's kind of hard until you know your value, no one can take that away. That doesn't mean people won't treat you like crap or disrespect you. You know what I'm saying? But once you know your value, you can just laugh. Like someone says something, now I feel like, oh, wow. And I think the next step that I'm taking this week to value myself is now I can go back to those situation jobs and places, finish writing a letter, which I did on one of them, and say, "This is why I left the job. This is what I had to offer," and basically, it feels really good. I think that's the next step I need to take is to
Very
disassociate myself, take my power back, and say, "Thank you for the opportunity, but this didn't meet my standards of qualifications and this, and I honor my value and time, and this is why."
nice.
And so at my second job that I was bullying at, it was interesting because I'd already left, found another job, and I was literally just going to leave the next day and then write a letter and say to the owners and say, "This is why I'm no longer here. I appreciate it, but this is just not aligned with me." But one of my coworkers told on me, and then the manager made up a fake thing and tried to make this big explosion. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Oh, yes.
yeah, and so it made me look like I was the problematic person, and so I haven't responded back to that because I was kind of so in shock and shooken up. But now that I have this value thing I didn't have value before, I can come from a place and say, "No, this isn't what happened. This is what I have to offer. Here are my other references. Here are my other things. Like this is all the value that I've brought to every place that I am." But
Mm,
in this particular situation, it wasn't aligned. I wasn't allowed to bring my value in,
right,
unfortunately.
right, and
And that just feels, yeah.
the cool thing is whether you mail those letters or not, you've still released that energy.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think, I'm still, like I said, I'm still new to all this. And another thing is it's like, it's kind of sad, but it's good. But I'm finding myself in a situation where I'm finally comfortable. I have a comfortable home. I love my job. My finances are looking much better.
Mhm.
But it's still weird to me because I'm not used to things being like this, but allowing myself to acclimate because it's either been survival mode or I've always had to prove things. But it's like, it's strange that I'm walking around and I'm like, my house is clean, I have money in my pocket, you know what I'm saying? It's great. I know it's kinda sad, but it's been that way for a
Oh,
while, but I
yeah,
think and like I said, I can go back to the beginning of our conversation, until I learn to value myself, I'm gonna continue to be on the sad merry-go-round. And so
exactly.
that's the great thing is I can get off that merry-go-round and say, it's like the Wizard of Oz, I've had the power all along. I didn't have to go on that journey, you know what I'm saying? But I had to realize it.
Yep,
So,
yep,
yeah.
yep. I was talking to my husband about this the other day, and I said, it's really kind of sad that most of the problems that we deal with as human beings on this planet all come down to our own self-worth. Do we love ourselves? Do we believe
Yeah,
we deserve to have these things, whether it's love or friendship or a beautiful home or money or whatever it is? It doesn't matter what it is. It's when we believe we deserve to have these things that we're worthy that they start to come. And I've gone through my share of crap as well. I've had terrible romantic relationships, abusive relationships. And that day that I said, enough, I don't deserve that. I deserve better. That's when I met my wonderful husband that I have now, who treats me like
right.
I'm a princess because you know what? I
Yeah,
am a princess.
yeah, yeah,
So it's all that self-worth, that self-love. And I just love so much that you've broken that eggshell, so to speak, and you're seeing that other side, because the more value we realize we have, the more beauty that comes to us. And there's this
yeah,
really neat place that you can get to where you're like, oh, that wasn't the best experience for me, but I learned some great lessons. So it has value from that. So we're just going to learn that lesson. We're going to pack that up. We're going to take that lesson with us and we're going to let the rest go. And you're at this point where, it's not, there's not really anything bad. It's just a learning opportunity. You've probably heard me say
yeah,
that a lot. It's a learning opportunity.
yeah, yeah. That's true. And the other thing is, now that I've had, like you said, this value, you don't take things. So it's I'm sure you've heard the story in many books where it's because I read a lot of spiritual stuff, and I sometimes you hear the similar stories, and it's about the father that gives the grandson or his grandson a watch and says, take it to the pawn shop, take it to the museum, take it around. And to ask him how much it's worth. And he went to all the different places, and each place gave him either a low number and said it's cracked or this and that. But when he took it to
Uh-huh.
the museum, they offered him $1 million for it because it was a price. You know what I'm saying? It was like
Yep.
something unique. And so
Yep.
that's the thing about it is you have to know your value because other people, when you go around, people don't see that. They don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And so
Exactly.
that's yeah, it's a good place to be. And the other thing that I learned from the class that I'm taking is like you kind of learn what an archetypes you are, and I won't go through them all, but my particular thing makes sense. It's because I'm like it's called a manifestor generator, and an instance is I other people plug into me. I help people manifest. Like I generate. A generator, you
Yep.
plug it
I
in and
am
it
the
helps the
same
whole
thing.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, you
I'm a
okay. So yeah, so you
manifesting
know what that is. Yeah.
generator.
So
Yep,
that
I
makes
do.
sense. So you know what that means. And so
Yes.
maybe you can talk on that later on something. But it makes so much sense because um that's my passion and what I love to do. I just have to make sure that I'm in the right and that I'm in a place I'm valued. And when I am, then it
Mhm.
doesn't drain me. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? It's kind of like I'm the battery for everybody else, but until I can, you know what I'm saying? So I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm still on the brink of learning all this, but it makes me feel really good because I do love helping, supporting other people. I just have to do it, in a place where I'm valued, you know?
Yes. And
So
I love that you called yourself a battery for other people, because if you think about our energetic bodies, we're here in the physical, but we're like out here in the energetic. And
yeah,
if we this is something else I preach on all the time. If we keep our energy clean and we release everybody else's static cling or crap that they're throwing at us throughout the day, we're in a better state. Our battery is highly charged so we can affect other people. So like one light worker, one star seed, one, however you want to identify, if you're identifying with that, uh, one of us can affect hundreds, if not thousands of people if we're vibrating at that clean, high energetic vibration. Versus if we're
yeah,
down in the dirt with everybody else. And, I love the Peanuts. So that the pig pen character with the dirt on them, that
yeah,
to me
yeah,
is somebody who needs to clean up their energy.
yeah,
We don't want to be pig pen.
exactly. Yeah, and I've noticed since I've, you know, noticed his value about me, there've been more supportive people. Like you said, you met your husband, and now things are just coming along that I'm realizing that because they're seeing that I'm attracting those experiences. So it feels,
Yep.
like I said, it feels really good. So
Yeah, and the more you clean up, the more you stick your head out, the more pieces you get out of that eggshell, the more that beautiful stuff is going to keep coming in.
yeah, yeah, and I think there's another great, spiritual story, so, like, if you define yourself, like, it said if you had a frog, and you had a duck, and you had, like, a chicken, and a raccoon, and you and they were all told to climb trees. If you based your worth on the ability of something, they just weren't in the wrong environment. A frog's not really meant to climb a tree. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh, I
sometimes,
do, I
you,
do.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, for example, though, the environment being my tree or whatever it was is the people you're around. It's not that you can't do the job, but if you're not in a situation
Mhm.
where, and also like a plant, if you don't have the right soil, the sun, there's nothing wrong with you. Just sometimes you're just not. You
Yeah,
can see it's so hard for me. At least for me, I'm learning when you walk in, you could say, "Oh, this isn't aligned." So now that I value myself, I will go into a job and I will set boundaries. And if something's not happy or working for me, then I will say something. Where before I would have just gone in and I would have burnt myself out. You know what I'm
yep,
saying? And then felt like crap. You know?
yeah, yeah. As far as work goes, my whole um, view on work has changed since I've left corporate America, because it used to be I have to work today. And now that I do what I do, it's I get to work today.
Yeah, yeah. That's
It's that
amazing.
whole mindset, that whole energy change. I get to work today. I get to affect other people in a good way, in a positive way.
Yeah. And the other thing I realized about another way, it's like there's so many, way you got to just look at the ways you value yourself. I realized like I'm always on time for everybody else, but myself. It's like really value you is like showing up for yourself, committing. And I couldn't believe like, sometimes it's like a dog chasing its tail. You think you're going somewhere, but you're really not. And for
Right.
me, I thought, oh, I'm valuing myself, and really, it's just like, oh my gosh, all my priorities are that's the one thing I've learned. Everyone else's life is organized and really well off, but mine, I've changed that since then. So that's another way to value yourself. Is I was shocked because I
Yeah.
thought I thought I was valuing me. And then just because you're working 80 hours a week doesn't mean you are,
Right.
taking care of yourself, making whatever. But no, it's like
Yeah.
I'm learning to value me time, just sitting, take care of myself, that type of stuff.
Exactly. Eating the foods you enjoy, maybe exercising if you want to do that, time for artwork or creativity or just quiet. A lot of us don't, especially in the United States, it's work, 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 work. You work
Yeah.
through your lunch, you work a 50, 60-hour work week. And, there's several other countries that don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's setting those boundaries and taking the time to prioritize your life so that you are the important thing in your life, not everything else. Because you can't give from an empty cup. You got to have a full cup to give, which is why sometimes I take some quiet time. I step back and say, you know what, I need to recharge my batteries.
Yeah, and that's as you know, that's an important thing about a mana generator is that the thing is we can do that. We can like go and then we can just lay down for 3 hours, charge and come back and be full force. That's part of our gift is being able
Mhm.
to, like you said, just recharge. And that's where we can easily come back. We can run ourselves to the end and then we can come back. But the key is like stopping before we get there and
Yeah.
and then getting back into that. So
Yeah. Realizing we need to take that time to recharge. So everybody needs to take that time to recharge. Some of us recharge quick, some of us recharge slow. So
yeah.
awesome. Is there anything else you want to share for other people in our group page that might be helpful? What do you think?
Um I just think, just really, I think the first thing I think I would say right now is just really sit down and look at your life and say, like, how are you valuing, are you truly valuing yourself? Like, kind of sit with
Mhm.
yourself and see where you're not happy or where something feels off and just think, well, how could I value, how could I do more for myself? And I think, or at least for me, the biggest thing is, we think we're valuing ourselves when we're really not, and I was just so shocked. So, I
Right.
would say start there. Start with, look. I would say, but kind of look at your what they say. Look at your relationships. Look at your bank account. Look at your room. Look at your hair. Whatever, and you can kind of tell from there, like where you may not be valuing yourself. And I'd say start there. And I would also say you set your worth and value and you don't let other people do that for you. Like if someone tries to define or something, you say, no, I'm worth, 20 an hour, not five or whatever, or my time, even if it's just your time, my
Right.
time is more valuable than that. So
Right.
that's what I would just say. And I would just say you're obviously we're unique and precious. It's like I guess one of the things she said is we tend to look at like the sparkly ring on a woman's finger and it's like, oh wow, look at that beautiful expensive ring. No, she's the ring, not the ring. You know what I'm saying? We're the
Yeah.
ring, not the ring. You know what I'm saying? You're the value, not that ring. And so I would say just start there. You know what I'm saying? And like you're and like I said, we're all unique in individuals, and so we're way more valuable than I think allowing ourselves to be treated or accepting. You can accept
Right.
more value in your life. So I'd say own your value is the
Own your
how
value.
it would
I
end it.
like
Own
that.
your value. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so I'm going to say two things before we wrap this up. So,
Sure.
first one on owning your own value. My suggestion to everybody would be to take an imaginary Sharpie. And when you look on like Google Maps or Yelp and you see the dollar signs for like restaurants, so you know how expensive stuff is. $1 sign is like 10 bucks or less, two is like 20 bucks. Do you know what I'm talking about with the dollar signs at
Yeah.
the Yelp? Okay. So imaginary Sharpie, you need to put like 20 dollar signs across your forehead
Yeah.
because that's how much you're worth. You're worth $20 signs. Actually, you're worth way more than that. So dollar signs and a big plus at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that one. And then the other thing, I'm going to read some of these things to you guys before we shut this to help you figure out where you might need to work on some self-worth. So I'm going to read this to you and then just sit with it. You don't have to answer, but just pick a number like 1 through 10, 1 being, oh my God, this is awful. I cannot even resonate with this. Or 10 being, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I am totally there. Somewhere in the middle, because this will help you figure out where you need to work on your self-worth. Are you ready?
Yes.
I am worthy of expressing my brilliance and sharing my unique gifts, and I feel safe doing so. Did you feel that one? I had that one hits me.
Mhm.
hmm I am worthy of the abundance that is my birthright, and I know the universe will support me.
Big one.
I am worthy of living my purpose and shining my light. I am worthy of creating miracles in my life and in the lives of the souls I am meant to serve. This will be my last one. I am worthy of experiencing pleasure and bliss in my physical human body. There's more. I could read more, but those
Yeah.
are a good
Yeah.
start. Like you sit and you listen to those and you let that vibrate inside of your being, and you're like, ooh, no, no, no. Or you're like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. I have one other thing that popped in my mind I'd love to share. One other thing to check.
Yes.
I'd like to ask people to check in with themselves. One thing I learned about myself is when it comes to other people buying them dinner, a gift, this and that, it's like the price tag doesn't, because you just mentioned this came to you when you put money price tag in your head. The
Yeah.
price tag didn't even phase me, but if it were for me, if it would, it's almost I go into panic and fear. So I was like, do not do that to yourself. If you see
Yeah.
something and you're like, oh, I shouldn't, that's 10 pounds. Oh, I shouldn't, it's 15. But if I were with a friend, I would have bought them the dinner, no questions asked.
Right.
And, so I would say, don't do that to yourself. Just buy it. Just say,
That's right.
"Yes, know you're worth it." Like, I do it and say, "No, I'm worth that." I get not kinda angry. I'm like, "Psh, I'm worth it. I'm getting that,
I'm worth it.
I'm getting that ice cream." And then one last thing that I did about value is I saw flowers and I was like, I'm gonna buy a bouquet, something from her in flowers. I wanted to do that. But then I thought, oh, I looked and I saw the price and I thought about it. And then I bought a scratch card and I won the exact amount that I needed for the flowers. And I almost went. I went up and I almost bought it. But then I said to myself, and I thought about it, I said, look, I have it and I appreciate it. But something said, I'm gonna hold on to this. I'm gonna value this money. I'm gonna hold on to it. And then
Uh-huh.
I thought, there are wildflowers growing all around my home. So I went home and I picked wildflowers and I brought them home. So, but I had this conversation and I said, no, you're worth it. But wouldn't this have more value if you held on to this tin and picked, asked the flowers around you and took them home? So that's just
Right.
kind of what came when you were saying that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So everybody's homework assignment is to put a dollar sign or pound sign on your forehead, like 20 of them plus, and help to realize that value within you. And like what Ronnie said, if you want something and you're questioning yourself, you are totally worth it.
Yeah.
Totally worth it. So much love for
Aw.
Coco,
Yeah, thank you
love
for
for
having me.
everybody.
Thank you for valuing me and having me on your podcast or Zoom. This is great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hello. I just wanted to wrap up this video with Rondi, wrap up our conversation. If you are interested in participating in the 5-day challenge, I will add a link in the description of this video so that you can join us for the 5-day challenge. And I am hoping that you will all discover how beautiful, how precious, how worthy, how valuable you are. And I am sending you all so much love. Namaste.